Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. You know, I get asked all the time, is Vision by Design worth attending? And I thought, why not do an entire episode about Vision by Design? And this is an episode that is normally reserved for our supporters. If you become a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset by going to our Substack or by going to myopiamindset.com, you get a bonus podcast every single month. This month's episode was all about Vision by Design. We talked about it for 2 hours, and I thought, why not give a little bit of a preview to what the supporters are getting, behind the scenes. So is Vision by Design worth attending? It certainly is. And here's why.
As usual, I think people say, well, why would I go to Vision by Design? I think this last meeting was an illustration of that because, I mean, heck, I learned some new stuff there. It surprised me that, some of these presentations, that the new information came by, that was helpful, very helpful for, to see that. As an example, Maria Lou was talking about, we'd always thought that Ortho K was not as effective in low myopia, that maybe you should use a MySight lens or something else because they would offer more myopia, better myopia treatment. And it's not the case at all. It's not even true. She the information for it that says that all these young people in low myopia are changing a lot faster than the rest of the group. That is, of course, had matured more. So it doesn't. Right. So Ortho K is just as effective in low myopia as it is in high myopia and moderate myopia. So this was, for me, it was like, okay, that's good. It's good. It's good.
I liked her lecture. The part of her lecture, especially that dealt with treatment zone. Because I know the treatment zone is a hot button issue in our space. And I thought it was fascinating that basically, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because a lot of the times this stuff is over my head. But I've been able to keep up with it a lot better recently. But basically what she was saying in her talk was that there's so much differential data. Treatment zone can be different. It is different from patient to patient.
Yeah.
Treatment zone is different from lens design to lens design. And the results of a smaller treatment zone are not entirely consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a fascinating update because this is a in contention, about small treatment zone and its effectiveness.
Randy Kojima did a presentation on the Volt study and showing that the optimum treatment zone was between 5.5 and 5.0.
Mm-hmm.
And showed the differences there. And of course, Marino Fermenti and I, we went around the world discussing how to deal with that, with your design. But yeah, so you had that, but that's what Vision by Design is. It's all this stuff going on, all this information, and you're going to have to process and take back to your practice and do something with,
Right.
To illustrate that, I mean, Langis, Michaud had this amazing he did the last year of education in myopia management, which was amazing to go through all this data that come out in these studies, everything else. So just to listen and sit there for that was, he did an amazing job of collecting that information and presenting it to us.
And his lecture with Patrick Simard was
with the spectacles.
was amazing. Like, and on the AAOMC Google group, the two of them had kind of given a preview on myopia spectacles, anti-myopia spectacles, which for those of us in the United States, like, we're just hungry to like give us some information.
Right.
How does this work? What, is it effective? Like, what kind of obstacles are you facing? And the two of them put something up on the Google group that was just like a fascinating primer to then the lecture that they did at Vision by Design, which I was blown away by. Like, it was just this in-depth look at all these different types of spectacles, the companies that made them, their effectiveness, the problems,
it's invaluable information.
Like what parents were doing with their kids who were wearing the spectacles, where it's like, you need a certain amount of genuine wear time. Like, they have to be properly placed. And mom was like taking the glasses off the kid for the soccer game or whatever.
Right.
Like that was
Yeah. It
one of the
doesn't.
joke examples that he had made that was a real life example, of
Yeah.
like compliance and whatnot.
And because you got the spectacles work effectively, the kids has to have 12 hours of wear with the thing
Right.
to
Right.
produce the numbers. So this is like, is this attainable even?
Right.
And then there was, I really found Maria Lou's discussion of red light therapy very interesting because I wasn't aware
Yes.
that it was recalled, that they wanted, they wanted a 10 years data study on safety, which they should have insisted in the
Yeah.
first place. There's been instances of kids suffering damage from these lasers,
Yeah.
trying to control their myopia. So it was interesting to get, her perspective on that.
Yeah. The issue was that the parents and the patient were not compliant in use. So there was overuse, there was incorrect positioning when they were at the red light device, and it was damaging their eyes, the
Mhm.
kids' eyes
Yeah.
as a result.
Maculas were getting,
Yeah.
lasered. I always thought, don't look at the laser, right? So,
Terrible.
yeah, I know. And so then, there's going to be issues with scotomas and damage for their eyesight for the lifetime, trying to control, So it was good to see that fact. I thought that a lot of Matthew Martin and Tomaszewski, did that presentation. They did the closing one, which
Yeah.
we talked about that, the fact that how much enthusiasm was in that room. This is the last lecture of the entire program, and there was
Yeah.
like people were just interactive and relating and laughing and contributing. It was an interactive presentation that the two of them did. So
Yeah.
it's and these are two all stars from our academy here.
For
Um,
sure.
and more of that. It's just there's just Cheryl
Yeah.
Chapman did epidemiology and axial length presentations for the boot camp part of it. I thought she did an amazing job with that. I
Yeah.
was very impressed. Paul did his part also. Paul Levine, one of our presidents, made his contributions. He
Right.
does stellar with the myopia control designs.
It was amazing to have the ophthalmologist
Yes,
speaking.
Bartman, Dr.
Yeah,
Bartman.
like
Yeah.
his first lecture, I was able to keep up with almost
Okay.
completely. The second lecture is when a lot of stuff started going over my head
Yeah.
about halfway through. But the first part where he was giving such credence to like not co-managing, but like working with a myopia management program and how
Mhm.
beneficial that was for the
Right.
laser surgeon to
Yeah.
have kids doing
Amen.
myopia management,
Amen on that
which
one.
is something, which has been said over and over again.
We just keep looking like, when is this ever going to happen? When are they going to catch on?
Yeah.
And to the other thing that was, and I got a chance to talk about this with the Bartels Award, but we think very similarly. LASIK surgeons and orthokeratologists think very similar, myopia management specialists, and because we re-engineer corneas, to get the optimal vision. They do that. We do that. We do that without surgery. They do that with surgery. But it's a very similar thing you look at. I know, one of the coolest things is that in China, we have LASIK surgeons that are fellows of the academy. They've demonstrated their ortho-K skills, so they know both those things very well. And that's the ultimate expertise of the anterior segment of the eye, right?
Yeah.
So yes, so it was to hear him his second lecture on corneal complications and what to avoid, with that, particularly keratoconus, early keratoconus cases, if you can detect that before treating them with ortho-K or other means, that was very important. But it was like, here's this symbiotic relationship we have with them. We're on the same page.
Yeah. People ask me all the time, is vision by design worth it? And I'm not just talking about in the last couple of years since I've left the AOMC. I'm talking about ever since we first started doing meetings. This question always comes up: is vision by design worth it?
Look around you.
Yeah,
it's changed a profession.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed a world.
Yeah,
it's one of the few places, unfortunately, today where like you talked about earlier, it doesn't matter even what country you come from. You could be almost at war with each other, but it's a common language you have. It's done that kind of fusion around the planet. You're talking that spirit, that movement has changed the planet. Now you have myopia management. We're having that full scale, right out there. That's because of the work that we did back in the early 2000s.
It's the camaraderie of like-minded people coming together. You'll learn just as much in the halls as you will from the speakers on stage.
The elevators.
You'll get incredible, cutting edge speakers and information, like really useful lectures and material, but you're also sitting shoulder to shoulder with people who are either almost at your level, or beyond your level. And the fun thing is everybody loves to talk. So you could be just starting
And
out
they
in
share.
ortho-K and myopia management, and you could be sitting next to somebody like Carrie, who's been doing it for 40 plus years. And you could be like, if you ever, like, you could a lecture, some part of the lecture, you could be like, have you ever heard of this? And then Carrie will, like, share everything with you. And that's how all of the members are. So
Yeah.
yes, Vision by Design is worth it. Like
Oh my God.
it's
It's life
got
changing. Like our
great
patients.
education, great fellowship and camaraderie amongst the people who attend. It's still a meeting that is exceptionally unique, and we designed it to be that way.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things we didn't mention in the history part one of what we were discussing about Vision by Design is I specifically wanted to model our meeting after Joe Collins in the Exodus group, because that was my first
Right.
exposure to a meeting where people talk to each other. The
Right.
attendees who were like just starting out in ortho-K or whatever back then, you're the pioneer generation of you guys.
Yeah. Joe was on the board.
You would just open up your cases and start talking about it. You guys were helping each other solve problems
Yep.
at the
Practice
meeting.
smarter, not harder.
And it was that spirit that I was like, this needs to be a core feature of Vision
Yeah,
by
you're right.
Design,
That
and
was
it
really-
still is.
Yeah, I'm
And
glad
if
you
for
brought
no
that.
other reason, you should go to Vision by Design so you can be with your tribe, so that you
Yeah.
can be with your people.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it's definitely part of our, it was something we copied actually with Exodus
Yeah.
Group.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good point. I'm glad we didn't leave that out. Joe was one of the
a
founding
level
board
of
members.
energy and excitement at Vision by Design that I have not seen replicated anywhere else, And so they have the best boot camp program, started by Caroline Guerrero Kauki, with lots of other contributors. And we'll get to everybody in our recognition part at the end there. But the best boot camp in the business, like
Nibbles and knowledge.
extremely thorough, covers so much. You'll get a taste of this at other meetings, but you'll have a multi-day educational experience.
Immersion. Yeah, you have
just
immersion.
fully immersed. People go back to their practices after Vision by Design, and their staff is like, "What happened to you?" And they're like, "I had an awakening, man. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do ortho-K." And staff's like, "We've been doing a little bit of ortho-K." It's like, "Yeah, but now we're really gonna do it." Like that's what happens to people when they go to Vision by Design. I have said this every year, and I don't know why they don't say it on stage at boot camp, but they should be like, "Hey, boot campers, look to your left, look to your right." Somebody in this room is going to be speaking at this event in the future, because Vision by Design makes rock stars. It gives people the confidence and the energy to go back to their practice. It gives them the knowledge to support their journey in getting ortho-K and myopia management like really going. And then those people find their way, they excel, they succeed, and then they become the experts, And I would also say that, like, that's what this meeting reminded me of, All right, that's it for this preview of a supporter episode. It's a full 2 hours about Vision by Design. And, if you're interested in becoming a supporter, supporters get an extended version of all regular episodes. They get a bonus episode each and every month. And they get the opportunity to ask questions, and then we are planning on doing special episodes where Carrie and I, and maybe some special guests along the way, also address those questions. So I know you're interested. You've listened this far. Please consider becoming a supporter. It's basically the cost of basically the price of a cup of coffee each and every week. We're talking $12 a month. So if you would buy me a cup of coffee every week to have a conversation about myopia, about ortho-K, about the industry, about all the cool things, if you love nerding out about this stuff just as much as Carrie and I do, and all we asked was you buy us a cup of coffee to have the conversation, if you would do that, then please consider becoming a supporter of the Myopia Mindset. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next one.